Hello, my name is Mikkel Forslind. I am one of the co-founders of Elden Pixels and also the game designer for Avoid Hope. On Avoid Hope, I did mostly level design, but primarily game design when it came to the design of the story, the atmosphere, the setting, and overall how the game should work. I'd say Avoid Hope was a quite challenging game to design. It originally started as a prototype we did for something called Creative Europe. We actually sent in a pitch document to Creative Europe, and we were one of the few companies in Europe chosen to develop this particular game. But back then the entire story was different, the entire setting was different. So from that, going back all the way to 2021 to what we have now in 2023, at the end of 2023, it's completely changed. Avoid Hope it's almost like it is a story, it's a platforming game, but it doesn't really have any real platforming in that sense. In the end, I think we ended up with something really good. It's an unusual game. There are enemies, but you kind of need to outsmart them more than you have to. You can't kill them, so you have to evade them and find creative ways around them. Besides the core team of me, BG, and Isak, we were lucky to find a science fiction and horror writer called Frida Windelhed, and she wrote the entire script. And we were lucky enough also to find an artist called Wave Shaper. Just a quick Google, turned out he was based here in Sweden, just 2 hours away. So I sent him an email, this was like 2 years ago. And he was like, of course I want to make a video game with you. So he ended up making a very, very cool soundtrack. We've had You Will Be Led. He's worked with us before. He did the sound design for Alva's Legacy. Also we had Christian Björklund. The last games he worked on was Little Nightmares 1 and 2. He did the sound design, and it's really, really well done. It almost sounds like a horror game, but it's not a horror game, but it's really, really cool sound design. The inspiration for Avoid Hope came almost 100% from movies. Mostly I'd say the horror movie It Follows, which kind of inspired the enemies and the whole overall music as well. But also a lot of different horror movies like Hereditary, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Thing. 100%, well 99% from movies. But also from, I'd say, particularly one game that I played as a child called Another World. There's a good behind-the-scenes documentary about Another World where they talk about the overall making of the game, and I can't remember if it's the programmer or the sound design, but he talks about the creation of Another World, and he says it's more a feeling than a story, and that's something we took to Avoid Hope as well. We kind of wanted to create more of a feeling than a story. Early 2021 we started with Avoid Hope, and that was at the point I thought that was fun and interesting because we did like a technical assessment of the prototype, which is something we haven't really done before, because when we made the Alva games we just started to make them because there were so many games to look at and be inspired from. But with Avoid Hope that prototype dramatically changed. And since we just came from creating 2 huge Metroidvania games, I was 100% certain I didn't want to make another Metroidvania at that time, because it's so much work to create that world and make it all connect with the different upgrades. So Avoid Hope has levels instead of a Metroidvania world, but there are levels where you need to return once you have found correct items or correct upgrades. We had actually a very talented programming intern 2 years ago, and he was very much into shaders. So shaders is this technique you can use to apply different programming techniques to light and art and make stuff look cool without doing the art of sorts. So he wrote a shader where you could actually like turn off the light on pixel art, which is quite unusual. Once that shader had its finalized form, we kind of quickly realized this is a cool look because we can light the game, we could turn off light, turn on light, and do cool effects, and we can hide stuff in the dark. And after that came in fruition, we kind of realized this is the way we want to make the game. We actually made like a decision, okay, is this how the game is going to look and play? And that widely changed the game design into a more darker game. Creating the world in Avoid Hope was made primarily using a program called Tiled, We are big fans of Tiled, and we've been using Tiled for almost 10 years, I'd say now. We started with Alva's Awakening, did Alva's Legacy, and now we did Avoid Hope. And it's a tile-based program where you can just create levels. It wasn't just me who made the levels. We had a very talented level designer called Boo. It was a collaboration where we designed the levels together. The process was that we decided on a setting. That could be a wood setting, a factory setting, a city setting. And then we divided that up into different parts, and each part connected to the other. And then we named them, make sure they kind of narratively were logic. So if, for example, you'd had a harbor scene, there were parts of the harbor that would make sense in the game world. And then we built it up very rough at the start, and then the process was that we just changed the levels over and over and over again, and we're still making a few edits down to the final rounds. One of the biggest challenges of designing Avoid Hope, I'd say, for me as a level designer, was definitely working with cameras. In our previous game, the Alva games, we just had one single screen camera, so we didn't have to really consider what the player actually saw. So we knew if they entered the room, they saw everything inside of the room. But we have scrolling cameras in Avoid Hope, and that was challenging. So they could go up and down, and they could go left and right. Releasing Avoid Hope next year is going to be really interesting. When we designed the Alva games, we kind of knew that people like those kind of games because there are traditional platformers, Metroidvania games. But Avoid Hope is something completely different. So it's going to be quite nervous, but also interesting to see what people think. It's a very interesting world we've created with the sound design and the music and the art. And the story, it's also really well made, so it's going to be fun and scary. But I'm very excited to get the game out there, and I can't wait to hear what people think.